Now, how you twist your ankle in a kitten heel, I don't know, girl. What's tea, bestie? How you doing? How your edges? How your kids? How that man? Girl, you know we don't give a damn how that man doing. Bestalina. You know why I'm here, girl. Imperfect Women episode 5 is dropped, and we gotta talk about the tea, girl. We gotta get into it. So episode 9 starts off, and we hear a narration from Nancy Bella Canese. She is telling us how, a young 9-year-old Nancy fell in love with dance, how she was really made to dance because she has such a high pain tolerance, being able to hold 12 times her body weight on her tippy toes, and a lot of that was attested to the unfortunate circumstances of what she had going on at home, right? We see Nancy, at first we see this just montage of young ballerinas training, and then we transition to seeing Nancy walking down the stairs of her home into her kitchen, where we see Robert busy at work. Nancy says, did you sleep on the couch last night? Because you clearly wasn't in the bed. You wasn't in the bed, Robert. You know what I'm saying? Robert pretended he clicking away, child. He clicking away. He just so busy at work. He got to get this report done so he could get it over to Kid for this meeting. And just really, it's very clear that he's disengaged, and he's purposely trying to not really get into a conversation with Nancy, because there's just this tension that's in the room. She asked him to put on her necklace for her, and as he's clipping it, he's just trying to get through it as quickly as possible. Nancy is talking about how she's nervous because she's stepping into this position as a creative director for this ballet. Robert say, "Oh, your volunteer thing." Volunteer. Listen, you know what I mean? It's given very much he can't be bothered, and it feels like he's very much checked out of the relationship. Nancy is it's not a volunteer thing. Don't minimize it. You know what I'm saying? Don't minimize what I got going on because you fake busy. Because at the end of the day, it was given fake busy, right? So she was telling him, it is, I have all of these different things to do, and just calling off all of these different things that she has to do. As she walks over to the trash can, and open it up, baby. It's an empty 2-liter of vodka. I'm talking about big Tito's. You see what I'm saying? The 2-liter empty. My girl said, "Damn, you done ran through a 2-liter in a matter of a few days." He talking about he don't want to argue, but we need to address the alcoholic in the room. We need to, a 2-liter? Robert. That's why you sleeping in another room. That's why you didn't go in the room. You said you was in the little, you didn't sleep in the living room. You slept in one of the guest bedrooms, but I feel like you was full of that Tito's and you passed out right on that couch, child. You been full of that yak, and that's just the bottom line. But he don't want to argue about it. Nancy tries to just pull the Band-Aid off, and we need to talk. I think that we should schedule an appointment to talk with a therapist. Robert is "Look, girl, I don't have time for that. I got to get to work. I got to get on about my business." And he dismisses it. And Nancy goes on about her business. And she pulls up to Mary's house to pick up Howard so they can ride to work together, because they're down to one car and the other car is in the shop. So Mary is excited and telling her thank you for coming to pick him up. And as much as Howard needed this, she needed this too. And we learn that Mary is a writer, or aspiring to be a writer. And she wrote a couple of chapters because she wasn't able to sleep. Just their usual girl talk back and forth as we wait on Howard to come out the house. He comes out and he's quoting Shakespeare or somebody like that, and he goes to get in the car, and you hear Nancy's narration as she walks to the car saying that, her and Howard have never been in a position to where they had their own independent friendship, and really she wasn't in the headspace to babysit her friend's underemployed husband. She called him underemployed, and you know what? Hell yeah. You know what I mean? Because also, Howard, you get in a car, you automatically want to take over the ox. You too comfortable. You don't listen. If you want to figure out how quickly your Uber can be called. If you want to hear the saxophones in my car, touch that aux cord. Touch it. I dare you. Don't touch it. Unless obviously you take the proper channels, then I might be open to see what your playlist hitting for. Other than that, baby, this is my ship. This is my ship. Don't get in here with that. The next thing we see, they're sitting at, I'm assuming it's a school, but they're, at the bottom where everybody's about to break out into their classes and start practicing for the day. Phil is there. He's introducing everybody. Nancy gets up and makes an introduction and just lets everybody know who she is. And after she makes her introduction, because Howard goes like, you know what I mean? Like something like really just wanting to be picked, like wanting to get up and start yammering on about something that we don't care about. We're not here to even learn about, because really you got this job because she the one with the money. You know what I mean? But he does that, so Nancy throws him the alley-oop. He stands up and he like immediately after introducing himself goes into like this lecture, and we didn't ask for it. We didn't ask for it whatsoever, so they cut him off. And you know what? I actually agree with that. And everybody goes on to start dissipating into the different things that they have to do as they get this production, off the ground. Nancy walks up to Phil and she tells Phil, she's so excited, and he usually does this like monochromatic black look for his previous shows, but she was thinking about adding in some color, like really letting him know like her ideas and what she wants to do and how she wants to be an asset to something that she loves very dearly. What Nancy didn't understand is, you got that title and it's a pretty title, but really you're not going to do anything other than just walk around the school all day, because you spend so much money, like you donate so much money that you basically pay to keep everything up and running. That's what Nancy didn't understand. So Phil tells her to put it in a lookbook, very much blowing her off. She don't know. You know what I'm saying? And she's feeling like ready to take on the world, because the other thing about it is also like, she's in an uncomfortable place with Robert, and she doesn't know, like, is this the end? Like, are we at a point where we're getting a divorce? The last thing I saw was a separation of assets. The man don't want to talk to me, so maybe I'm losing my relationship, so I have to be ready, and I have to start trying to figure out like what I'm going to do for money and things if we get separated. So I understand why she's doing what she's doing, on top of it being like something she's just truly passionate about, and how and like that passion being taken from her so prematurely because of her bald-headed skittle-diddle ass mama. You know what I'm saying? And even in her narration, she was talking about like how it had been 25 years since she'd even been back in a dance studio, and how it took every ounce of her emotional reserve just to walk through these halls and see these bodies and, all of these things. So you feel for Nancy in this moment, because she's just kind of like giving you, like, Nancy just feels very sad. You know what I mean? So the next thing that we see is Nancy and Eleanor sitting at a bar having a conversation. And Nancy is just being very candid about what she's feeling and how she is scared that this is the end of her relationship. And Eleanor is like assuring her, like, this man love your dirty draws, girl. Like, don't even trip. It's not what you think it is. See, you ain't rich. You ain't never had no money before. So you don't know that like wealthy families, they do this kind of stuff. They will separate assets for so many different reasons, and you have nothing to worry about. The love didn't die. It sounds like he's having a midlife crisis, but not that he's no longer in love with you. And it's always funny to see Eleanor and Nancy having these conversations, because it's like, girl, like, you sitting here pouring into her cup, telling her all of this stuff about the man that you love. And I feel like at moments we see Eleanor, like, if Nancy's not looking, like, in the quiet moments, kind of you see that jealousy, or you see that, like, she just feels like, like, why is she in my spot? And I could be reaching, I could be projecting, because I just know that, Eleanor wants him like that, but I feel like I see that, right? So either way, she's trying to assure her friend that, it ain't no thing but a chicken wing, right? And she also acknowledges the same thing that Nancy says, the fact that he's drinking so much, that's very triggering to her. And why wouldn't it be? You know what I mean? Because it's like look at the conditions that she was raised in. Her mother was a raging alcoholic who quite literally tried to Amazon Prime her to the Lord. You know what I mean? Like, she was going to be performing the Nutcracker for Jesus. And so if I see somebody just drinking that yak in excess, I would be very much triggered by that too. And Eleanor is acknowledging that that is something that could be triggering, but to listen to the quiet voice and basically to know that, like, even though you're feeling triggered from a life experience, you should know that this man loves you and wouldn't do anything to hurt you. But it's like, no, I actually don't know that. Because if anybody was supposed to love me and not hurt me, it would be my mother. And we see how that ended. You know what I mean? Like, Eleanor, shut up! Nancy laughs and was like, it's funny because here I am and I'm having this conversation, like, feeling like my relationship is coming to an end. And I just commissioned a piece of art for our anniversary. Now, that's the piece of art that we saw in episode 1 that Robert tore up whenever the accusation of David, or whenever the arrest for David happened. Here's the part that I find is funny about that, though. She told Eleanor about the artwork, but then Eleanor acted like she didn't know anything about the artwork when she saw it. So I just thought that was funny. Long story short, we see how Nancy and David came into contact with each other, and we saw that it was not anything romantic. Like, she commissioned a piece of art, and David said that she wanted to show her scars, but she actually didn't want to show her scars. So I wonder why there's an inconsistency with that, because when he was taking the pictures, like, to be able to get the features of her face correct for the painting, and, Nancy is telling her she wants to do something risky, she wants to do something bold. He told her to put her hair to the back because the scars are sexy. And she was like, that's not a part of my story that I want to keep reliving when I see them every day. Now, as she is sitting in the studio with David and he's taking the picture, she started getting all these text messages. Ding, 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 ding. Notification central. You see what I'm saying? We find out, child, it's Scott. Who is Scott? AKA Denim Jacket. Who is Denim Jacket? Denim Jacket was the dude that was at her memorial service, but it's also her mother's boyfriend that she was swiggling and or giggling with. You see what I'm saying? She had reached out to Scott. So now Scott in a frenzy, Scott trying to see what's to that. And now, she don't want to be bothered anymore. And she's saying, like, she had reached out to him and she didn't know why she did it, but it's like, she can't explain why she likes to get so close to the fire. She likes to just kind of put herself in these type of situations. After that, we are back at the school and Nancy is watching the rehearsals and she's sitting there, and Nancy love a notebook, child. She keep a little notebook on her where she's sketching and doing whatever she's doing. And then Howard walks up and he just gives her a brand new notebook. And it was a small gesture, and he was like, I figured your first one would be almost full. The little note on it, he calls her Eleanor, or whatever the name is, Lucille, whatever the name is that Philip calls her. So they just both are joking that Phil is still calling them by a name that is not their name. And Howard makes a comment that it's probably because he always full of that Tina Snow. You know what I mean? Playing in the powder. That's what he doing. And Nancy is like, what? Phil? Like, so they're just forming this relationship, and you hear this narration of, it was kind of inevitable that a friendship would be forming between them, even though it was one that she had never considered before. We get a time jump to 4 weeks before Nancy is Amazon Prime to the Lord, and they are wrapping up a rehearsal for the day, and the rehearsal ended like 4 hours early. It was like a half day. Howard says since he had a few hours to kill until it was time for him to pick up the girls, he was going to go and sneak and see a little movie, just have a little time for himself. He actually even asks her, if she was doing anything, clearly to invite her to the movie. But Nancy drops some coffee on herself. She goes in the bathroom, and as she's going in the bathroom, she passed Phil, who calls her the wrong name again, which I think is crazy that you keep calling her the wrong name, and she's cutting checks for this school to be open. Like, I would shut this whole shit down. So she goes in the bathroom to, like, wipe off her shirt, which her outfit was very tea. That was probably like my favorite outfit that I've seen her have on so far. As she's throwing the napkin away, child, she look in the trash can. Why the lookbook in the trash can? Girl, the lookbook in the trash can, child, filled and threw the lookbook away. Mind you, it was a nice little leatherback situation, swatches of the fabric, like really just something that she put a whole lot of hard work into. She take it out the trash can. She don't shake the table. she don't make a fuss. And it couldn't be me, because let me tell you something. My money is what's keeping this whole thing going around. You're not gonna feel so comfortable to disrespect me like that. I'm sorry. You just not gonna do it. But whatever. She gets her book, she kind of goes sulking out. Howard is like, what's wrong? And Nancy is like, it's nothing. He just threw this book away. And Howard is then just very uplifting to her. And, you're a great woman and you're smart and you're all of these things. And they have this conversation. And in Howard uplifting her like that, she decides like, okay, like, what was you saying about that movie? And they go to the movie together. They go to the movie, and the movie that they go see is called The Red Shoes. The movie came out in 1946. The movie follows the story of this ballet dancer. Her name is Victoria, and she is basically, it's like a love story where she's torn between either following her career or falling in love with this composer, which is obviously very fitting because I think that it obviously parallels Nancy in a lot of ways, especially when you hear the conversation that they're having coming out of the theater. Howard is saying how basically Victoria, who is the main character in the movie, was driven by obsession. And, after Howard says that and explains the character like that, Nancy defends her and says, do we really get to choose our compulsions, or are they just hardwired in us? Which I think was such a very potent question to ask, because obviously, Victoria and Nancy have some parallels here, because I do think that there is a part of Nancy that is driven by these compulsions and this obsession, but I think that it speaks more to her life outside of Robert, is this chaotic side, this side to still try to keep in contact with Scott, and just that part of her, those compulsions, I think that's what they were more so speaking to in that conversation. And I think that it's just a very interesting question to pose, because when we do look at obsessions and compulsions and different things like that, a lot of time, some of those things are things that are, if you look down the family tree, they're inherited, traits that we picked up. Do we get to choose our compulsions, or are they truly hardwired in us? It was food for thought for me, and I'm still kind of sitting on that. So I want to know, what do you think? Either way, as they're having this conversation, Nancy's phone started ringing, and she steps just right off to the side, maybe about 2 feet away from Howard. And it's Scott, and he's been blowing up her phone, and she's telling him I know that I reached out to you, and I shouldn't have done that, but stop calling my phone. She's doing to Scott the same thing that she did to David, which is that flirt with them when she needs them, when she needs to feel that attention, when she needs to feel wanted, and as soon as she gets what it is that she's looking for, she throws them away, and now all of a sudden she's the victim and she don't know how she got in this situation. That's exactly what she's doing to Scott. She hangs up the phone. Now Howard is literally 2 feet away from her, but he was oh, that sounded intense, but not that letting on that he heard the conversation, which obviously he heard the conversation, because boy, you right there. How did you not hear it? And she just kind of lightly explains what the situation is to Howard, and she tells Howard tonight we're supposed to come over to your house for dinner, and when we come over to your house, please don't say anything or mention this. I haven't told Mary, and Robert doesn't know. And Howard is yeah, it's cool, your secret's safe with me. They walk into this little malt shop, and when they ask the name for the order, they both say these new code names, because it's clearly their inside joke. The next thing we see is them at Mary's house for dinner. Their little girl is giving a performance. She's giving the girls a show. Robert is clearly full of that yak. He done got drunk off of that wine, and he finna show his behind. That's what's gonna happen, right? So, everyone's just having a good time. They're wrapping up dinner, and someone asks, I don't remember who, I want to say that it was Mary, asked, how is everything going? And they were, everything is cool. And then they make a joke about Phil and the fact that he's a drug addict. And then they're like, who is Phil? Howard says some philanthropic, some bullshit, right? So Howard says, he responds as far as in this sarcastic but corny way as to who Phil is. And Nancy starts overly laughing, bro, to the point where I feel everybody should have just been cause girl, it was never that funny. It was never that funny. So I think that Mary clocked that she was kikiing a little too hard, but she just kind of more so notated it. The camera doesn't ever show it, but I just feel like you would be a fool not to. Like, I would definitely be clocking it. After they put up the dishes and go into the living room, everybody's sitting in the living room. They're enjoying that glass of wine. The kids are upstairs. Robert come hopping down the bunny trail with the yak in hand, and he was like, I have something that I would like to say. I wanted to talk to them about something. Nancy can see that Robert is drunk and is really trying to get him in the car, but of course Robert want to say what he want to say. And so he was like, I know that y'all are going through some legal issues with your son, and I have this really great defense attorney who owes me a huge favor. So I'm going to just have him represent your son pro bono. So Mary is like very appreciative of it. Howard is like, that's all nice and all that, but I will figure out how to take care of my son and how to protect my own son. So then Nancy sees that like it's uncomfortable because it is a nice gesture, but I think that because you can kind of see like this thing forming below the surface, it just feels like, as a man, don't play with me like that. You know what I'm saying? So so Nancy was like, we don't have to interject with how they choose to protect their son. And Robert essentially tell her, girl, shut your dumb ass. Robert is rude to her, and she walks off, and he was like, oh, here she goes. She finna start crying. Like, he just full of that yak, and he's just being very rude. So Nancy get up, and she go walk in the kitchen because obviously she's upset that he's, like, embarrassing her like this in front of their friends. And Howard comes his bald-headed ass in that kitchen to comfort her. Are you okay? He shouldn't have talked to you like that. Like, just all of a sudden want to be a savior. Softly putting his hand on top of Nancy's hand, very much letting her know, baby, he going. He absolutely going. And if I'm Mary, I'm clocking that you the first one in the kitchen to comfort my friend. Like, how are you in there? I'm confused, the kid. You see what I'm saying? But whatever. So Nancy is like, she kind of moved her hand back and she's like, everything is fine. She's safe to go home with him and be alone with him. There's no issue going on here. Mary walks in and says that they have successfully put Robert in the car, and, Nancy goes ahead and going on about her business. After that, the next thing we see, they're at like a dress rehearsal. It looks like an evening rehearsal. Howard is working on his document to get everything sent over for the programs for the play because it's getting closer to the production, being ready to premiere. And he asks Nancy to just look over it to make sure that, it has the dance language that needs to be put in it because that's not his area of expertise. So she tells him what to add in, and Howard is like, you just came up with that just now. And Nancy's like, well, in case you didn't know, I used to be that girl. Like, I was a dancing ass queen. Like, I was a decorated dancer, so much so where I had a scholarship, but it didn't work out how it was gonna work out. You know what I'm saying? And so Howard is like, I just want to say thank you, and not just for the gainful employment, but also just for being a friend. And I'm so glad that I can call you a friend or whatever. And so now all of a sudden, Mary got this 1989 bottle of, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just had that in your purse talking about, I was going to, have a solo celebration because we know that I can't drink this in front of Robert or with Robert. Would you like to drink with me? It's giving setup. It's giving setup. It's giving, you saw that he was going. You saw that he was giving you attention, and you really love attention. So you was putting a play in motion, and I'm not going back and forth about that. Nobody can change my mind about that. And so, of course, he was like, man, like, absolutely. And he was like, Mary wouldn't care. He was like, listen, I know that this is an everyday occurrence at your house, but around my parts, a bottle of wine this old, this fine, baby, yeah, we finna do this. We finna do it right. So he go ahead, he like hastily, like, it gave very much, he ain't never had nothing nice. It gave very much, baby, he ain't never had nothing. He ain't never had nothing nice, child. He ripped open a bottle of wine, and, he was like, we need to, like, put it in a decanter. Girl, Mary took it to the head. I know that we supposed to let the red wine breathe, but baby, it ain't breathing. It's gonna breathe right down my throat. And that's exactly what she did. So, now how we're like, oh shit, we finna get lit. You know what I mean? We not trying to be cute. So they drinking, they getting full of that yak. The next scene we see, Howard is on the stage. I don't know. Now he's a ballerina and she's just kind of sitting there telling him that his posture is wrong. And, she gets up to show him the correct way to like position his hands, and then she like twists her ankle. Now, how you twist your ankle in a kitten heel, I don't know, girl. I'm not buying it. That's what I'm telling y'all. I'm telling y'all that Nancy wanted to get that cootie cat up. She wanted to give it up, child. And that's just what the Lord is telling me. So she twists her ankle in her kitten heel. So now they upstairs and they are icing her ankle, but they taking shots. Girl, they taking shots, right? As they're upstairs icing Nancy's ankle, Howard asks her, like, what happened that ended the dancing career. And so Nancy is like, do you want the short story or do you want, the long version? And so he was like, give me the short story. She tells him a car accident. He asked for the longer version. She, tells him about the car accident and that, her mom was drinking and, the usual drunk slaps didn't work. And this time she wanted to do something bigger. So Howard asked her, like, what made your mom so angry? And she said, and she tells him, like, I did something stupid and I was sleeping with her boyfriend. So Howard is like, well, he assaulted you. And she was like, it started off like basically whenever Nancy's mom would go to sleep, he would like take her in the closet or wherever, and they would be swiggling and giggling or whatever. And while at first it very much was assault, she said that after a while she enjoyed the attention. She liked it. How we got to the point where she was enjoying it, she says she's enjoying the attention, and maybe she's enjoying the attention because she's not getting it from her mom. Maybe just a part of her liked the attention because this is something that's taboo and shouldn't be happening. Whatever it is, you can see that there was a part of her that was getting some enjoyment out of this idea of possibly getting caught. And she literally says that. She was like, she liked the attention along with the possibility of getting caught. And that's when Howard says, you're a fire starter, but you can't show Robert that because it doesn't fit this image of the Hennessy family or Robert Hennessy's perfect little wife. Now, her engine is purring, baby. She is revved up like a Hellcat, child. So now she ready. And all of a sudden, that ankle that was hurting, it ain't hurting too bad because, baby, she is on top of that bald-headed man. You see what I'm saying? And she is giving him the Calio Soldier 3000. Riding that thing from the night to the morning. Now, what happened, sister? What happened? I thought your ankle was hurt. I thought you was injured. The second a man give you a little attention, the second a man stroke that bad side, ignite that fire in you, all of a sudden, you popping it for pimp. Child, so she do what she do. Now all of a sudden, once it's done, she walking out, she leave and she going about her day. Now what I noticed when she left, she ain't limp one time. There wasn't not one limp in her step to say you had just twisted your ankle, but I digress, right? The next scene we see, the ladies are sitting in the backyard having a conversation, and Mary is just telling them how the court proceedings went. Mary says that the son got in trouble for gambling. So he just liked to shake the dice. And that he got like basically some type of probation, and he essentially got off really easy. So while they're having the conversation, she's over here having a full-fledged panic attack, child. Girls is like having flashbacks of the swiggle session, looking at Mary's ring. So she kind of get up and like hastily runs off. And Eleanor is like, girl, what's tea? Like, what are you doing? And she was like, I gotta go. I want to be there for Mary, but I have a lot going on right now. I did something so stupid. And she confesses to Eleanor that she had an affair. Now, despite Eleanor's disgust that Nancy would cheat on Robert, she was like, well, with who? And she was like, you wouldn't know him. He goes by the name of David. And she goes off and she goes home. Now, when she get home, child, Robert is packing a little bag. He got to go to New York for an emergency meeting. And she was like, so you don't have no time to talk to me, but you have time to run off for a meeting. And it's like, yeah, because, bitch, I got to get the money. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you like living nice, right? I have to work a job. If I have to go, I have to go. But whatever. Because her whole thing is like, I just don't understand why we're not communicating and why you're avoiding me. And as he's walking out the door and assuring her that everything is fine and he'll be back in a week, she says, like, are you going to divorce me? And Robert kind of backs up and he kisses her softly and he assures her, like, no, that's not what it is. And he goes on about his business. He still doesn't really give her any conversation. Baby, no sooner than that man went downstairs to get in that car to go to the airport, she texting that lady man. She texting that lady man, where you at? Next thing, she pull up. Skirt, skirt. You know what I'm saying? She in the Range Rover. She pull up. She sitting at this like little nookie spot that's out in the wild somewhere. M walks a bald-headed man into her Range Rover. Now they in the back seat. She giving him the Calio special again. Miss Good Knees, if you please. You know what I'm saying? Like, she might have not been able to dance again, but she was not able to get on top of that thing. Them knees were still very much, you know what I mean? The knees were still intact, bitch. And she was giving him a hell of a ride, right? So after that's going, baby, they doing it everywhere. We can do it anywhere. I can love you in the shower. You know what I'm saying? Like, girl, they all in the dressing room with it. She done took the lady husband outside, child. They had a little party together. So now when David was like, you know, the man that was at the party with her was ready to go, now we know that man was Howard David. Here's the thing, though. I want to know what that looked like whenever he was ready to go, because they never showed us that. Like, are they just not going to show us certain parts of it? Because if that's the case, like, why divulge that kind of information to us and then not show it to us? Like, I remember him saying, like, Buddy wasn't having it, so he was ready to go, so she left. And you know, we see them at the party, and Nancy is having a good old time, child. She's smoking a little of that devil's lettuce. She walking around in her little lingerie, baby. She hike it up for girl Nancy. This not the same Nancy that we seen fumbling around at that New Year's Eve party. Now, this is a whole different Nancy, and I would gesture to believe that this is the Nancy that Nancy wanted to be. This is Nancy when she in her element, right? Right. And so after the little party scene, baby, we back at the Hennessy Manor. The art that she commissioned for the anniversary is being installed where we saw it at the beginning of the series. And, you know, Robert comes walking home. Robert comes walking inside. She give him a kiss, child. And she was like, you know, do you want to have dinner? And he was like, well, no. She asked him, do you want to talk? And he was like, well, we got a family dinner tonight, so I'm finna take a shower. We're gonna get ready to go. They sitting at the family dinner. And when they sitting at the family dinner, you know, they're celebrating because there was a deal that was closed and everything happened successfully. So what we find out through the family dinner is drunk Robert, who don't know how to manage money good, he proposed a bad deal to his daddy that sank 20% of the funds for this deal. And to save the deal, they took money out of his portion of the trust to repay it. So now they're in a position where all of the financial expenses have to be approved through the daddy. Child, that's what they said, child. And mind you, we don't even find this out from Robert. We find this out from Kit, because Robert still hadn't told Nancy. And Kit was like, I thought you was going to tell her when you got home. And he was like, well, I didn't get a chance to. So this whole time he fumbling around because he done fumbled the bag. He knew what was happening. He knew he had got in trouble. And instead of just having a conversation with his wife about it, he chose to like do this. Men, they just got to learn how to communicate, y'all. They got to learn how. So, you know, he gets upset. He storms out the restaurant. Of course, Nancy got his back, and his adult name that he goes by is Robert, because they keep calling him Bobby, but it's like really to show y'all that they don't see him as an adult man. And I mean, how can they really see him as an adult man when he act like how he be acting? But whatever, right? So the next scene we see, they're pulling into their driveway, and Robert is just very much sorrowful. All of a sudden, he's just full of tears, and now he's crying, and he's like, if you want to leave me because you didn't sign up for this, you didn't sign up to have finances approved through somebody's dad, then I totally understand. And Nancy was like, I would never leave you. I thought you wanted to leave me because I saw the email with the separation of assets. And Robert was like, no, I was trying to make sure that your money was protected, that your money from the settlement was protected. Now, here's the thing. What settlement? But whatever, right? So he wanted to make sure her money from the settlement was protected. So he put it into an offshore account to keep it from being consolidated into, the money that the dad was going to basically have control of. So she, climbed and she was, I've been without your love for 3 months and I was going crazy. So you mean to tell me you didn't cheated on this man? Not because you was so my thing is, girl, so you mean to tell me just 90 days without having good communication, hitting a little rough spot in your relationship for 90 days had you biggity bop? I'm talking about own it. Own it. You went and biggity bounced your ass onto the next man's dick, boy. You know what I mean? Onto your best friend's husband. Girl, nasty girl. I don't know. So now she climb over the seat, because one thing about Nancy, baby, she gonna climb over a seat. A car ain't never been an obstacle for her. So she climb over the seat. She get in Robert's lap. She's kissing him, and they're just very much embracing each other. And now everything is back to cool, so the next thing we see is premiere night of the ballet. They're just hugged up. They're like high schoolers, just kissing and all over each other. And it's just like none of the other stuff ever happened. Like it all went away. She's good now. And she gets up for a second. She has to go to the powder room to freshen up. But here's the thing though. I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but as they sit there and they all cute and cozy, baby, Howard keep looking over. He is not a fan. He is not a fan of this girl being booed up with her husband at the ballet, child. So she get up for a second and go to powder her nose and, freshen herself up. Baby, Howard come walking in. I've been blowing your phone up for 2 weeks and you ain't been answering my calls. What's to that? What's to that? You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about baby don't have no emotion. She don't give him no energy. She was like, yeah, you could just throw them burner phones away. It's time that we wrap this up. Now, you mean to tell me, girl, you done popped that cat for that man? You done gave that man some cootie cat he ain't never had. Mary not popping it like that. I don't care what nobody say. Mary ain't got it in her like that. She ain't swiggling with him anytime, any place. She ain't tearing him up in the back of that minivan. He ain't never had no cootie like that. And if we being a bean, you know what I'm saying? If this is a grown crowd and we are 18 and up, some men really just enjoy being slutted out. You see what I'm saying? You giving him that treatment he ain't never been just used before. He ain't never been at somebody's beck and call before, being rolled on like a Calio soldier and then going on about that business, baby. He ain't never knew what that was like. And now all of a sudden you giving him a little something and you think you just gonna turn the water supply off. And he said, no, baby, that's not how that go. That's not how that go. That's not your decision to make, when it quite literally is my decision to make. But not everybody deserves the land of milk and honey. You got to be careful who you get that level of freak to. Everybody can't handle that premium package. You see what I'm saying? She done gave the man a premium package. Now he ready to rob the bank. Now he ready to rob the motherfucking... Like, you can't do that. You can't do that, Nancy, right? So he was like, Robert is a good man. Robert deserves to know. Low-key blackmail, right? Which I said I thought it was going to be a blackmail situation, and it's giving blackmail. And she was like, first of all, do you think that Robert would even believe that I would sleep with somebody like you? Oh, do you think anybody would believe it, right? And so she say that and she stormed off. And now she was shaking in her boots when we seen her walking off. But baby, her poker face was strong when she was in that room. And that man was forehead to forehead with her like that. She ain't listen. She ain't put nothing on it. They not finished the night. The ballet is over. We see them coming home. We see Robert and Nancy walking into their bedroom. Robert is doing his best to be the supportive husband. I really love the outfits, costumes, just doing the best he can. So Nancy goes in the bath. She put her phone on the nightstand. She go in the bathroom. Now here's how I know I'm not ready to be married yet. I just did the gesture of putting the phone on the nightstand. The phone not even in my hand, and I automatically flipped the phone face down. God's still working on me. Anyway, so she put the phone on the nightstand. She go in the bathroom. You hear the narration. And she was like, the best way to handle this is just for me to tell him and just pray that our love is strong enough to survive this. So she stayed in the bathroom for a few minutes. But as she's in the bathroom, I guess collecting herself, baby, that phone going, roo. Flood of text messages come in. So Robert is like, why is her phone, why is the trap jumping? Baby, Robert picked the phone up. It's it's a naked picture of Nancy in a backseat of the car, child. Now here's the thing. When I was watching this on live, somebody asked me who took the picture, like who could have took the picture. And at first I said it could have been somebody from outside of the car, but then after I watched it again and I paused it and looked at it on my phone, it was clearly like they could have been done swiggling and she was like still in the backseat putting her clothes on. And he just snapped a little picture real quick. Because some people do that. Like some people sneak pictures and that's what it very much gave. So I think it was probably Robert that took the picture and was like sending it to her to let her know like, bitch, I'll ruin you. Like I'll post these pictures. I'll go public with this information. So she walked back into the bedroom to tell her husband, like, you know, while you was gone, I was out here like wilding out. And he just hold the phone up. If I was Nancy, bitch, I would have jumped out that window. Baby, if I was Nancy, I would have jumped out of that window, child. I would have faked a seizure. I would have did something. Because evidence? Why would you do that? And so, you know, Robert is like pissed off. And obviously he, you know, and she was like, you know, it was nobody. It didn't mean nothing. And so Robert is like, you cheated on me. Like you slept with somebody. So he has like just this big explosive response where he picks up this, like, vase or something and throws it at the wall. Nancy goes running out, obviously scared. Like I'm sure that was like very much a triggering situation to be in. And she goes running out. She get in the car. She drive off. So as she driving out the driveway, girl, we see the lights of a minivan turn on, bitch. And who is it? Mary, quite contrary. And what is she doing, baby? She following Nancy. And that's how the episode ends, Miss Girl. That's how the episode ends. And I'm going to tell y'all this, and I'm going to really frazzle your edges with this. Even with what we seen, I still don't think it's Mary. Listen, I still don't think it's Mary. And, you know, I've said this in previous recaps, and I'm going to say it again. I just don't believe that with how juicy this series is, with how like riveting and how they're doing this great job of like giving us all these different suspects and like keeping us on the edge of our seat, to just reveal the killer like that would be piss poor. Like you would you don't build us up like that and then just throw it on the table and be like, damn. You know what I'm saying? So I think that this is yet another misdirect. I'm going to keep referring back to, you know, the conversation that was had in the previous episode when we were at the party, when Nancy says, you know, in the narration for the New Year's Eve party, that Mary worships at the Church of Optimism, especially as it pertains to her family. I'm still on the idea of it being Howard and Mary finding out about it and helping cover it up. Now that I can see, because I clocked the blackmail thing. I clocked the idea of there being blackmail, but this is the other thing. See, y'all so busy pointing out Mary and pointing out the son, who I don't even understand how y'all are saying the son when we haven't seen literally anything at all to insinuate that it would be the son. I just be feeling like some of y'all just be pulling things out from your nether regions, but whatever, right? While y'all too busy doing that and making up suspects that haven't been presented to us, the thing that y'all are missing is that Robert lied. Yeah, Robert lied a second time. If you remember in episode 3, when he tells Eleanor about how he found out that Nancy was cheating, I'm going to see if I can insert the clip. It might try to ding it for like copyright is what it usually does, but if it's over a certain amount of time. Basically in the clip he tell her while Nancy was in the shower, her phone was going off and going off, but he's usually not in the business of just checking her phone. It was just going off so much that he picked it up, and when he picked it up, he saw a naked picture of her. And he said that he confronted her, and when he confronted her, she just told the truth. Now all of that is what we saw. Now, the things that he said to Eleanor that we didn't see was he said that he called the number over and over again and it was a blocked number. He never called that number. She was literally walking out of the bathroom as he was looking at the text messages. You never called the number. So then the next thing that he says that never happened was he begged her to tell him who the person was. And even at the lowest point in their marriage, she in their marriage, she was still keeping her secrets. That wasn't true. You might have yelled at her, who was it, but then you threw a vase. You know what I'm saying? So you never begged her to tell you who it was, and also that she was leaving to go see him that night and end it. None of that ever happened. Like, you literally made all of that shit up. That was all a lie. And my thing is, this is not your first time lying. This is your second time lying, because you lied about even knowing about the affair in the first place. So I'm trying to figure out, Robert, why do you keep lying? Why do you keep lying? You know what I mean? Why do you keep lying? And a lot of times, child, it be the husband. So I don't know, child. I'm still side-eyeing Robert. And I'm still also side-eyeing Howard, because he's bald and he attacks people with hair. Like, it's a tale as old as time, honestly. But I want to know, bestie, like, what do you think about this episode? Who do you think it is? What are your theories? Let me know in the comments, because you know that's where we be chit-chatting all the things. Also, if you're not done hearing me yap, if you're not ready to get off the phone, you see what I'm saying? I got to hit you with the body roll, because that's how you know that I love you. And, see what else I got. See what else I'm talking about. See the things that I'm yapping about on this channel. Until next time, love you. Bye.